It took a while for smartwatches to get to a point where I actually thought they're useful for everyday use as well as use on adventures and in the backcountry. But after trying out a ton of different watches from Polar, Suunto, Fitbit, and Apple, I landed on the Garmin Fenix 5 as the first smartwatch to really bring everything together and deliver. So when the Enduro 2 came around with a lot of extra features and doodads, I thought a lot of those things were gimmicks, but I've been using the watch for a long time now, and I've come around and think a lot of what I thought were gimmicks are actually game changer features. The first feature that I've come around on is the flashlight. When we first saw a flashlight on the Garmin Fenix 7X, I definitely thought it was a super gimmicky feature, but after using the one on the Enduro 2, which is 2 times brighter, I definitely think that it's a useful feature. Garmin placed several LEDs along the one edge of the watch here, and it creates a pretty bright light, and there's a laundry list of things that I find it useful for. The thing I use the flashlight for the most, which I never would have expected, is for picking up our dog Pippin's poop in the wintertime when the nights are really long. I wake up and take him out and it's dark, and I use the flashlight in order to identify where his poop is and then able to pick it up so that I'm not leaving poop all over our neighborhood. It's also really useful in dark, tiny spaces if you need a quick light in order to screw a screw into something or find something underneath the sink. The flashlight's really good for that. As well, if you're camping or backpacking and forget your flashlight or headlamp, if you're out by a fire or something like that, then you can just quickly turn the flashlight on your watch and navigate back to your tent. The fourth thing that the flashlight is really good for is if you like to run and you like to run at night, then you can turn the flashlight into a strobe feature. So when your arm goes forward, it flashes the white light, and then when your arm goes back, it flashes the red light. And this is a really good way to not get hit by a car. With the Enduro 2, you get 34 to 46 days of battery life when in smartwatch mode. The watch has a solar panel built into the lens, so if you get about 3 hours of moderate sunlight a day, that's what's going to give you that 12-day bump. I've hit over a month of use on one battery charge, even with daily activities like going to the gym and going for runs. Going on something like a hike or doing an ultra marathon with GPS turned on is going to drain the battery a lot faster. You get about 110 to 150 hours, again, depending on how much sunlight you're getting to the solar panels, if you're in GPS mode. That's over 6 days of battery life in GPS mode, which is really good. If you turn on the satellite multi-band mode, which gives you a lot more accurate satellite if you're in kind of treed or very mountainous terrain, then that's going to drop down to about 60 to 80 hours of battery life, which is still quite good. If you run the watch in battery saver mode, which turns off basically all the features like GPS, heart rate monitoring, all that, you can get over a year of battery life through the watch just using it to tell time. I like to use the SATIQ feature for the watch if I am using GPS. What SATIQ does is it chooses between 3 different modes to give you the most accurate GPS while also saving the most battery. The 3 options are GPS only, so that's where it's just connecting to the GPS satellite constellation. All constellations where the watch connects to the 4 different satellite constellations that it's able to connect to. And then the third option is all constellations with dual frequency. Third option is going to give you a really accurate GPS track, especially if you are in a treed area or in a city with a lot of tall buildings that could be obstructing the view of the sky, but it's going to use a ton of battery. But if you're in an open area with clear view of the skies, it's probably going to drop down to GPS only mode because that's going to get you just as accurate of a GPS track without using as much battery. One of my favorite features with the watch is the ability to see detailed maps. The Enduro 2 has a big screen in order to see the maps and has a lot of detail on the maps like contour lines, rivers, forks in the road, trails, as well as a whole bunch of different landmarks. You can also load routes onto the watch using the Explore app and then follow those routes when you're out on a trail. This is a super useful feature if you're on a trail that has a lot of forks in the road because you can see those forks and the other trails that go off of the main trail that you're trying to follow. And then it's also really useful if there's no trail at all. But the feature that is a game changer for me with the mapping system is the touchscreen that the Enduro 2 has. Normally I find touchscreens kind of gimmicky with watches, and I much rather have physical buttons to press because I find them more reliable. But the combination of the mapping with the Enduro 2 and then the touchscreen is great because I don't need to use the buttons in order to navigate around on a map. I can just use the touchscreen and go ahead on the trail that I'm following, see when the next water source might be or the next fork in the road or the next landmark that I'm trying to get to. The touchscreen on the watch made one of my favorite features, mapping, even better. The 5th feature that I've really come around on is the ability to pair the watch to a Garmin Inreach. With the watch paired to the Inreach, you can leave the Inreach in your pack and do most of the things that you'd want to do right through the watch. You can view new messages, so you can get a notification on the watch as a new message comes in and then be able to take a look at it. This is super useful so that if you do get a new message, you don't have to pull the Inreach out, check if it's important or not. You can just take a quick look at your watch. You can also reply to those messages directly through the watch, either using your quick presets, which the watch will have access to, or you can actually type out a message fully just through the watch. The thing I use it for the most is to use the presets in order to check in. So right through the watch, I can just send a quick preset checking in saying that I'm all safe, everything's all good, or I'm at camp, or I'm starting my day, and I don't have to pull out my Inreach in order to do that. If the check-in's super important, like I've told SATIQ that I'll check in an hour, and if I don't, then send the helicopters to come rescue me, then I'll set an alarm through my watch as well so I don't forget. If you end up in an emergency, you can also trigger an SOS directly from the watch. There's a couple scenarios where I can see this being super useful. The first one being if you get stuck somehow and you can't have access to your pack where your Inreach might be, then you can just go on your wrist and trigger an SOS. The other one might be if you have taken off your pack, maybe to go scout something or you're a little ways away from your tent and something happens and you can't get back to your tent and your Inreach, then you can trigger the SOS through the device. It has decent range, it's through Bluetooth, so you're probably gonna be looking at around 30 feet with clear line of sight. If you have something in between you like this big rock mound like I do right now, then you're gonna get much less range. If the Enduro 2 is a little bit out of your price range, it is a very pricey watch, but I think is worth it, and you're looking more at the Phoenix series or the Epic series of watches, then go check out this video right up here where I compare both of those watches to determine which one I think is the better option.